Morning, everyone. Aido here. Social care management team at Crosscare, social care workers board at Carew, member of the consultative forum for former residents of mother and baby homes. This morning, what I'd like to talk to you about is it's based off something I was reading during the week, an article written by Sean Healy, who is the head of a charitable organisation called Social Justice Ireland. And Sean and that organisation have been producing fantastic analysis on social justice issues and reporting on them and doing yearly reports since, I think, 2013. And Sean had written an op-ed piece, I think it was in The Independent that I read it, but in relation to something that affects all of us, and that is housing. And those of us who are working with very, very vulnerable individuals, whether it be in my field, in homelessness or disability services or mental health services, youth justice services, domestic violence services, whatever addiction services, whatever service you're working in, the very basic and very primary need is for a roof over our heads. And this country has got it badly wrong. And we are in probably one of the worst times for housing in decades and decades and decades. Probably, in the last 50 years. And it's all down to the fundamental policies of the government that we have. In Sean's piece, he looks at, those who coming into the housing market and all the different ways that people come into the housing market. Young people who are coming in, first-time buyers or first-time renters. People who need social housing support. And then how that happens, council building houses, housing bodies building houses, and then we have the vulture funds or the cuckoo funds coming in and buying whole housing estates. And that's fundamentally the problem. It's all about supply and demand. If you have a strong social housing market, in other words, if the local councils build social housing and house those most in need, then the private development builders, that housing then is left for people who are able to acquire a mortgage and who can afford that. And the private rental market then is left to those who are more transient and who want to rent a house, are not ready to buy a house, or saving up to buy a house. And what happens is, when all of those areas function properly, the housing market cools down and the prices come down. That's what happens. So social housing is what triggers a cooling down in the housing market and allows all of the rest of us, me and you included, to be able to make a choice as to what way we want to house us and our family. Whether we want to rent long term, whether we want to purchase a house and have a mortgage, or if we're on very, very low wages, whether we have social housing available to us. And Sean has asked for lots of different things to happen. Amongst some of the things are close all the tax loopholes for these big vulture funds. Make sure that the housing bodies in Ireland who now have huge stocks of houses don't sell them on. And to build a huge quantity of housing in the social housing market, but by councils, not by housing bodies, by councils. So the council housing stock is increased 10 or 15 fold over the next 3 or 4 years. And if we see all of that happening, things will change. And why is it important to us as social care professionals? It's important to us because we are advocates, we're policy makers, and we are people who buy into the housing market as well. So we have 3 or 4 different responsibilities there. And we need to be able to act on them. And when the next election comes, we need to be able to agitate and to call people to account for destroying the housing market in this country as it is, for leaving countless thousands of people without a home, and for having people stressed beyond what's reasonable. See you next week.